following Answers for Elders podcast features author, innovator, Alzheimer's and dementia family coach, Faith Marshall. And welcome back, everyone, to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard on your favorite podcast channel, on national radio in 24 different markets across the United States. And most importantly, right now, you're listening to us and a wonderful guest by the name of Faith Marshall. And Faith, you're wonderful. I'm so glad you're here. And I don't like this topic.
I don't either.
I'm sorry. It's really, really hard to talk about.
I don't either, but we really need to raise awareness.
Yeah. And being protective. And obviously you're a dementia expert. You work with families all the time that are going through dementia, and you probably see senior scams more often with those with dementia, because the critical thinking part is not necessarily that well. What are you finding, and what makes, tell us a little bit about what goes on with those with dementia.
Well, I have one client specifically that is on the internet a lot, checks his email. He's recently retired. And so that's always been something that's been part of his routines. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that does happen in dementia that is helpful is a sense of paranoia can set forth where they start to not trust some things that are happening. So at least he asks me when he gets some strange email with a link, ask me about it. We talk about it. Sometimes I'll log on and help him work through it. But he gets emails that are saying his antivirus is up to date. Out of date. You need to log on and pay this. So sometimes he may think that's a real thing, and he'll reach out to me and say, "Can you help me pay this?" And my mind immediately goes, "Wait."
Yeah.
And it just, with the few situations that I come upon, it makes me realize that it really is. It is happening daily, I don't know how many per minute, but it's continual. And with someone that has dementia, telling them not to click a link in an email is a reoccurring conversation. And putting up firewalls and things like that. We've taken those steps with computers so that we've got IT helping to monitor what's going on.
Sure.
And it's just such a big threat, as well as them feeling like someone is helping them. That's the pattern between all of these, the phone call, the brake fluid, all the things that they're actually believing that someone is there to help them. Oh my gosh, my antivirus is expired. I need to pay this right away. They create a sense of urgency in whatever the scam is doing. Your computer's not working. You need my help, but I need to buy parts or whatever the case may be. I need to go buy lumber to fix the porch over the roof. So it creates this need for communication with family on all levels.
Sure.
And you don't, like we talked about, you don't want to feel like you're prying or spying, but you do have to listen. And what happened with my own family was my mom would say, "Don't tattle on me." It's like she felt bad. I sucked into it again, "Don't tattle on me." And that was, she didn't want us to worry. Yeah. But yet we needed to be part of those conversations to alert the authorities and reach out to the AARP and the local police department and be more educated about it and be more mindful. And neighbors, again, can be helpful with all of that because they're the ones who may be in conversation with your loved one over the fence, next door, saying hi. And
what I always say is it's a really difficult road for families right now, especially if you have a loved one with dementia, because that loved one with dementia has a reality and they have every right to their reality. Whether they're accurate or not, it's their world and it's the truth to them. And it's really, important for all of us as their loved ones, their sons, their daughters, their family friends, their siblings, their spouses, to allow them their dignity. And yet at the same time, to be prepared for when certain things happen. my whole piece is that start having family discussions up front, build a sense of trust with their loved ones. And I think this is one of the things that, when we talk about the most important thing that you can do with your loved one and being a family caregiver is to establish trust with that parent or with that loved one. If you're a spouse, you're likely trustworthy, but I see too often that there is a division between the adult and the adult child, because there's that trust factor there. The adult child isn't around very much. They're not engaged very much with that senior loved one. They may live out of town, so they don't live day to day with this person. And if you're vulnerable, you're going to hang on to the things that you trust most, which may not necessarily mean the most healthy thing for you. The other thing, I am really a strong believer in starting to have dialogues where you don't have, elephants in the room. It's okay to start having healthy, difficult conversations early. And how you do that in my world is start speaking about your own fears, your own concerns. Mom and dad, I was laying in bed last night and I couldn't fall asleep because I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
I
That's
really
one of
want
the
to
first
talk
things
about.
one of the first things I do with coaching is
Yeah.
pull the family together and have those conversations. And many
Yes.
family members can be in denial and fear, as well as the patient
Mhm.
themselves. But forming that network and getting access to the bank accounts before there's a problem, and
Absolutely.
following the finances, and maybe taking over the bill paying and those kinds of things that can help with all of that, so that at
Yep.
least you can respond to something if it does happen. Um, and then encouraging that communication so that it
Mhm.
isn't like mom did, don't tattle on me.
Yeah.
It's you're aware before it's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, if you don't see your loved one very often and talk to them on the phone, and all of a sudden you visit and you're seeing now a bunch of papers that are laying on a table, or bills are piling up, things like that, those are indicators that maybe their mind is not working as normal. This is something unusual, is something that maybe instead you say, Mom, let me help you.
Right.
There's also great services out there. I know of one that is amazing, and it's called Silver Bills, and they will actually do all the financial bill paying on behalf of a loved one, so that you don't have to worry about the day-to-day expenses of your loved one. If there's any concern, they will notify the power of attorney or that designated person,
Mhm.
and but still give, that $500 a month, or whatever amount of money to that loved one, so that they're not in a situation where they're vulnerable. And
Right.
I think that's the key.
Yeah. Yeah. Not vulnerable, and not at the grocery checkout with a declined debit card. No, don't be
Exactly.
quite that tight, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Faith, I know that you talked a lot about families with dementia. How can you have those conversations about concerned about being scammed without them feeling vulnerable or defensive, I guess is the word.
Well, I mean, there's so much when someone has a diagnosis to cover, and just in a summary of highlights of things that need to happen once you have a diagnosis, that's
Mm-hmm.
just one of the items on my
Mm-hmm.
topic list. And then we just dive into each specific thing based on the need of the patient. Is it that we need to figure out a care plan first, and then
Mm-hmm.
outline who in the family is on the family team and the care team, whether it's family or whether it's professional caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
So they all have a job, just like you would in a business. And then that person or that family member is responsible for kind of checking in and making sure that those parts of it
Mm-hmm.
are happening, and everything is moving along smoothly. And there's always like an alert of
Mm-hmm.
if something goes awry. But
Right.
establishing that line of communication is key for any family to
Mm-hmm.
be successful. It's unfortunate that sometimes that's more difficult than it sounds,
Yeah.
depending on geographically where they are, or whether there was something that was uncomfortable even between siblings that makes it hard to overcome.
Right. And you do support groups online, do you not? For
I
families?
do.
Tell us a little bit about that, and how can people get involved?
Well, I think it's really important for people to feel heard and feel part of a community, find their tribe. So by doing group coaching, I do an introduction to group coaching the first week of every month. And I would encourage you to sign up for that and just check it out. You find people either close in proximity to you or just close to your situation. And having someone to talk to when you're going through this that truly understands it can be so supportive. And we all need our community, and we need to be heard. A lot of people use Facebook groups for that. Facebook is 24/7. You can post something at any time and get a response at 2 a.m. But just having, someone that maybe you could go have coffee with in your own local community that is also dealing with the day-to-day, like the book, The 36-Hour Day as a caregiver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And everybody's on a different step in that journey. Some that have been there can help advise those that are going there, and vice versa. Just getting that compassion and a feeling of a sense of peace of mind and less overwhelm. So
well, and I am like really wanting to, as before we close out, how do people sign up, and how do we reach you?
The best way to reach me is by email, faith@faithmarshall.com. And my phone number is 855-36-FAITH. And that allows for text and phone conversations.
Wonderful. And also, I'm just going to close out the show again for the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline. And that number is 877-908-3360. And Faith, thanks, folks, so much for being on the show. We've missed you.
Thank you. I've missed you.
And to each and every one of you, you know what I always say, be good to each other. We would like to thank you for joining us in this podcast. Faith is here to support you and your family on this journey. She will help you to come together in harmony, creating the best team in advocating for your loved one's care. So call Faith at 855-363-2484 to receive a $200 gift card just by mentioning that you've heard these podcasts. Again, that number is 855-363-2484. And guess what? That spells Faith, 855-3-FAITH.